Hello. Thank you for joining us today for New Year, New Routines, a gift to you from Infinite Rainbows Mindfulness Consulting. This was our January workshop kicking off the year, and we thought we'd launch the digital course in spring because spring can sometimes also offer that feeling of new year, right? That's when things start to wake up, things start to become alive. So some of us celebrate new year around the springtime with the rebirth and regrowth of life. I invite you for this course to get yourself like a nice warm cup of tea because again, we're going to be touching on some heavy subjects, doing some internal work. So I would invite you to kind of explore that a little bit, get some warm, cozy things, whether it's a blanket or a cup of tea or hot cocoa, good for the soul, right? As well as something to write with and something to write on. I would highly recommend a journal of some kind. In addition, you will also receive the New Year, New Routines workbook. I would invite you to follow along with the workbook as we do this together, whether you print it out or you follow it digitally. It is your preference, user's choice. And feel free to pause the course along the way if you need additional time to process a concept or a topic we're discussing. So, a little bit about me. I have actually over 20 years of experience in family consulting, but odd fact about me, I started teaching when I was 13. So we had to take this aptitude test in middle school, and I apparently showed a high vocation for education. So I was bused from the middle school to the high school to help run our child development program. So by the time I left high school, I had about 7 or 8 years of teaching under my belt. And then, in turn, by the time I graduated college, because I was teaching preschool at the same time I was in college courses, I was already a 12-year veteran teacher. So it made for very interesting conversations my first few years teaching. But among my experience, I've also become a Reiki master practitioner and teacher to learn some energy exchanging techniques that I could incorporate in the classroom, and also a certified children's yoga teacher to include some breath work and some movement and ideas for regulation and mindfulness in our days. So, the topics we're going to cover today are a lot of questions I invite you to consider. So, the first topic we're going to discuss is, why do we need routines? Or are we in a new phase of life that requires new routines? We're a family that understands that routines do have a place in our value system, but we're in a new phase where our current systems may need some restructuring, and that happens. And so, welcome. We're glad you're here. The second one is, where on earth do I start? There are a lot of factors to consider. There are a lot of moving pieces, moving parts, and energetic beings. So it is not a one size fits all model. It is a lot of questioning and internal processing that I invite you to consider along our journey together. So then that third topic is, how do I get my family involved so I'm not doing it all? You, as the caregiver, are most likely the prime resource for everything. You cover food, you cover transportation, you cover safety, you cover just about every topic for your child's overall well being. But in turn, routines, again, we're going to discuss this in a little bit, but routines are meant to build some of that independence, right? So we want to make sure that everyone's getting involved so you're not doing it all and relieve some of that stress. And then finally, creating a plan. I laugh every time I see this image because if you are a parent or a caregiver, I'm sure this feeling speaks straight to your spirit several times a week. Ah! So the question is, why do we need routines? I would invite you to pause here if you need a couple of minutes. I would also invite you to grab the journal we discussed earlier and maybe jot down some ideas. Why would routines be helpful for you in your family dynamic? And here's some of the things we wrote down. Some of the ideas we came up with were, of course, establishes structure within the family dynamic, fosters independence in our children, allows a sense of autonomy. And those two key factors, fostering independence and allowing a sense of autonomy, are critical components for child development. Discovering autonomy and agency is such a treat when you're a little learner, just trying to navigate your world, right? So, if there are routines in place, again, this allows your child to foster and grow those key critical components of development. And then in turn, establishes expectations and consequences within your family dynamic, which gives all members a role, relieving some of the pressure off of that sole provider, minimizes tantrums and breakdowns because children have a clear understanding of their expectations and consequences, and dun, 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 allows you some beautiful sanity. Am I saying this is picture perfect? No, but it's a structure that can absolutely assist and facilitate within this realm. So, back to the question of entering a new phase in life. Do you have a child that's entering school for the first time? Or are they entering a new school? Are they going from elementary school to middle school to high school, or high school to college? Do we have new developmental milestones that we're celebrating? Do we now have a walker in the family? Or better yet, do we have a runner in the family? Or do we have friends that are quite verbal and are developing these great skills left and right at a rapid pace? Do we have new mealtime needs? Um, have our friends' palettes changed and we require maybe a new structure? Or do we have new events going on where our kids are involved in sports or involved in after school activities, and the mealtime needs shift a little and we might need a little bit of assistance with preparing things? Or do your current routines still align with your values as a family overall? Have your family dynamics changed and you realize that the values you once considered are no longer, are no longer aligning with your current family dynamic? And do we need to kind of reconsider what our values currently are? All these are okay, and all these happen, and all these are part of the structure of evolving life. If things stayed the same forever, it would be quite a boring society. So we're glad you're here and welcome. And so, again, some of the things we discussed earlier, those new developmental milestones, do things still currently align? Um, just considering those questions along the way. So, at this moment, feel free to pause, or if you want to keep going, absolutely. On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident do you feel in your current routines as they stand? 1 being little confidence, 5 being you feel great and um, things are awesome, or 5 being you're great at setting routines, but maybe we're in a place where we need to reformat or restructure due to life changes. That could be 5 too. All right. Where on earth do I start? This is probably the hardest piece of routine setting, and why I devote so much time to it. In I use my classroom as an example, but why I spend so much time, especially at the beginning of the school year when we're all brand new, establishing routines. Because when you're managing several kids with several different personalities at once, it a clear expectations, clear consequences, and structure is critical. So here's what I would invite you as the seat of the parent in this setting. The first thing I go to are our core values. What are your core values as the chief parental officer of your family? That's CPO. And I would say no more than like four, three or four. Any more than that, and our routines can maybe get a little too muddled. Um, Keeping those, I mean, having values, of course, are critical, but I'm talking about those core, non negotiable. This is how you run your life. This is how your family is operated by. This is your oxygen. This is your faith. This is your whatever your core values are. I would invite you to kind of take a moment and see what those are for you. So, for example, in my family, it's our first one is accountability. Everyone plays a role, balance in work and in life, making sure that we're taking care of our health, we're taking care of our relationships, and we're able to foster that within our work as well. And then equity. Everyone feels seen and heard. And then for us personally, fourth would be faith, of course. That would probably be number one for us. But just for workshop purposes, I wanted to honor these three for you guys. And so I would invite you to go ahead and take a pause right here, or just take your journal out and kind of jot down off the top of your head what your core values are. If this isn't something you've thought of before, I would invite you to Google, what are my family's core values? Or what are core values? And there are plenty of free resources and articles I would invite you to explore that kind of help you narrow down what those may be for you and your family. All right. So, where do I start? One, we've identified our core values. We've started from there, right? And then we need to analyze our current structure. What is currently happening? And kind of doing a, like, again, you're taking on the seat of your family as a business. You are your chief parental officer in the business of your family. So, we're going to do a quick little analysis of what's going well and where are some things we can target. So, let's take a look at an example of a previous routine. So, here's the morning and the evening. So, first one is you get dressed. Second thing is you brush teeth, rinse face, maybe fix your hair, you grab lunch, backpack, jacket, and you run out the door. Very quick, very breezy. Evening, you shower, you set out clothes, you pack lunch for tomorrow, and you doom scroll in bed. Yes, I already hear some of those cringes along the way. um, but overall, this is kind of the routine, an example routine in the nutshell, right? So, what I would invite someone to do from here is take a look at this page. What is working and what do I wish to change? Right? So, the first two on the left would be what's working, and the second two would be what do you wish to change? Um, I would invite you to kind of take a pause here and write down, what does your morning routine look like and what does your evening routine look like? And kind of do an analysis of that. If you need some ideas for the analysis, in our previous routine slide, the positives are it's a quick morning, quick in, quick out, and it's muscle memory driven. So it feels automatic. So those are two positives, because not everything you have set is negative, right? There are positives in your routine. But then two things we could work on is feeling rushed, not fully awake in the morning, or trouble fully sleeping, like I haven't fully concluded my night. So, like, example, when you guys cringed at the doom scrolling, I know we did, no judgment because I did myself. Kind of maybe looking at that, finding a replacement for that and things like that. Which brings us into our next step. So, where do I start? We've identified our core values, we've analyzed our current structure and how it's set up. Now we want to identify some small, simple changes. Rome was not built in a day, and neither will be your family dynamic. So start small. What are some easy peasy, quick things that you can change to become quick habits? And then build from there, right? So let's take a look at that previous routine. Morning was get dressed, brush teeth, rinse face, maybe fix our hair, maybe throw it, whatever. Grab lunch, backpack, jacket, run out the door. The evening was shower, set out clothes, pack lunch for tomorrow, and doom scroll in bed. Now let's take a deeper dive. What are some simple changes we can invite to make? So I will say this over and over and over. A solid evening plan sets you up for a solid morning plan. Let me say that again. A solid evening plan will set you up for a solid morning plan, right? So, AKA, stop that screen time. That blue light keeps your body and your nervous system awake, right? I'm not a medical practitioner, nor did I ever play one on TV, but all the studies we read, we show, we see on social media say this. So let's change the flow of the evening routine, maybe. So let's shower right before bed. Your body's relaxing, you're washing. I mean, the metaphor alone of just washing off your day sounds so inviting. Or maybe a couple days a week, have a fun bath with some good bath salts, detoxify, enjoy, things like that. Or and replace screen time with a self-care component. So instead of that doom scrolling, maybe we have some hot tea or some decaf hot chocolate with some journaling and some reading with like a very dull light, just enough so we can see the pages. And personally, I prefer a book as opposed to like a Kindle. Again, the blue light situation. I just prefer to see pages. They help my eyes start to relax gradually over time and then allows a solid sleep. So, looking at these changes, the potential new routine could look like this. So, again, a solid morning routine starts by having a solid evening routine. So, let's take a look at this new evening routine and what that entails. So, we have first thing after screen time or game time, we make our lunch for the next morning. So all we do is grab and go. That is a still an automatic process, right? The second thing we do is set out clothes. If you don't feel like doing that every night, one thing I do for my husband and I is I I do everything on Sunday. So Saturday I typically do laundry, and then Sunday I make sure we have our week's worth of clothes ready to go, so we just grab and go. So it's one less thing we have to do. And then that third thing is we shower, bath, meditation, and a warm beverage of choice, whether that's tea or cocoa, what have you. So, solid evening routine to then prepare for that next morning. So, the first thing is waking up 20 minutes earlier and setting a soft alarm. I would also offer the suggestion of with your alarm, I like visualizations personally. So for me, thinking of my wake up as the opening credits of my movie of a new day is just the coolest visualization ever. So my alarm is actually set to a song. If there were a movie made about me, what would my opening credit song be? And that's what I set my alarm for. So that way it's not an obnoxious alarm. It's something that, oh, this is the first day of the rest of your life, girlfriend. Go for it. Big mindset change, right? And then the second thing is listen to a podcast or a show while brushing your teeth, face routine, and styling hair, or listen to a pump up song. The third routine is get dressed. Fourth is breakfast. Five is grab your backpack, shoes, and lunch and leave. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But this way, it's still an automatic process, right? You've got the same routines going over and over. You're switching your mindset, right? A lot of us, especially if you get the Sunday scaries, Mondays can be kind of intimidating and can spring some anxiety. This is a great way to ease some of that anxiety. Having like a show or a song or a podcast that you listen to really pump you up. You can say those affirmations in the mirror while you're getting ready and brushing your teeth. Or you can just listen to the lyrics. And if they're really positive, then that can really help set you up as well, right? So we went from having a rushed, it wasn't all bad, but a rushed old routine. And with a couple of tiny tweaks, we've created a new evening and a new morning routine. Not as hard as we thought, huh? All right. So here comes the big question. How do I get my family involved? I forgot to mention one little tidbit. Remember this schedule here? I never mentioned it was mine. This actually happens to be the routine of my nephew. So this is a child's evening routine and a child's morning routine that's already been put in place by his incredible mother. So how do we get our family involved? There are many ways we can do this depending on age and stage and ability, right? So using those core values, establishing expectations and consequences. Choose no more than 5 tasks to be completed. I always say, keep it on one hand. Any more than that, you'll lose the child. It'll feel overwhelming. And of course, it'll bring on that sense of, I can't complete this task. It doesn't feel comfortable to me. And then that's where the breakdowns, the tantrums, and the escalation starts to happen, right? So no more than one hand's worth of tasks. Keep it on a hand. And then leave one task of their choosing. So out of those 5, let one be one that they come up with. So example, screen time during his morning routine was my nephew. So like listening to a show or a podcast while he's getting ready, that was his choice. Or the evening routine, having like hot beverage, whether it's warm milk, whether it's warm cocoa, child's choice, right? That way it still gives them that sense of agency, but they know their expectations and consequences. We're keeping it simple, keeping it on a hand, and then leaving one task that is one of their preferred choosing. And then, of course, use visuals, make it fun and engaging for kids to access their tools and their learning. And in the digital resource, I've included a couple examples of what this can look like for you. So I deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate all of you for joining us today. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email us here, infiniterainbows8@gmail.com or info@infiniterainbowsconsulting.com or stephanie.at infiniterainbowsconsulting.com. We would love to support you in any chance we have the ability to. Also, if you liked this course and the digital workbook, please feel free to look at some of our additional resources we have available. We have children's mindfulness coloring workbooks that include affirmations and are intended to develop mindfulness in a way that is familiar for children. We also have additional digital e-courses on transitions, and stay tuned for the one in March. We're going to be recording one on the power of play and how learning to incorporate play in your day helps regulate emotions, helps build solid executive functioning skills, helps with gross motor development, fine motor development, and overall well being in your child, and developing a beautiful, safe space for you as the family unit. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.